Archduke Ferdinand of the Austro-Hungarian Empire is sitting in his car. With him is his wife Sophie, Duchess of Hohenberg. They have gone to visit a part of their own empire. Suddenly, an assassin rushed in. Standing on the footboard of the car, he fired several shots at point-blank range. Sophie collapsed in her husband's lap. The Archduke also lost consciousness, having been struck by 2 bullets. I am talking about a time that changed the history of the entire world. World War I began as a direct consequence of this brutal assassination. Subsequently, that great war ended at the cost of the blood of 8.5 million soldiers and 13 million ordinary citizens. But how did just 3 bullets turn the tide of the whole world? To tell you that, I, Saifullah Saif, have come before you once again. To understand how a single murder led the world toward a global war, we must understand the political situation of that time. The root of the problem lay in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The Bosnian Serb community lived in the regions of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Their main goal was to separate from Austria-Hungary and form another Slavic state. The neighboring country, Serbia, was fueling this fire. Thus, the future emperor of Austria-Hungary, Archduke Ferdinand, announced a trip to Sarajevo, the capital of that region. The rebels chose this as a perfect opportunity. However, the plan to assassinate him was actually devised by Colonel Dragutin Dimitrijević, the head of Serbia's military intelligence. June 28th, 11 a.m. On that day in 1914, no one could have imagined what was about to happen, but in fact, it was almost inevitable. Before Archduke Ferdinand arrived, the route his motorcade would take through the city had already been printed in the newspaper. Countless people stood in line to welcome the Archduke. Among them were 4 or 5 assassins. Although the first 2 did not get the chance to throw bombs, the third assassin, Chabrinovic, did. However, his bomb hit the car and bounced off to the back. Some officers in the car behind were injured by that explosion. The Archduke was stunned by this incident. He should have fled immediately, but instead, he went to the town hall to deliver a speech. There he said, "I came here for a visit, and I was welcomed with a bomb." Afterward, the Archduke and his wife went to see the injured officers. On the way back, the Archduke's driver suddenly took a wrong turn. When the driver braked after realizing they were on the wrong street, another assassin was right there. By a complete stroke of luck, he found the Archduke within reach and shot and killed the Duke and his wife at point-blank range.
Austria-Hungary was furious. Serbs were attacked all over the empire. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia and made several severe demands. But do you know what's interesting? The Prime Minister of Serbia himself had informed Austria-Hungary about Serbia's involvement in the plot. Prime Minister Nikola Pasic was a bitter enemy of Colonel Dragutin Dimitrijević. However, due to his position, Prime Minister Nikola could not inform them directly. His letter was so cryptic and indirect that the Archduke did not understand it at all. But after the Archduke died, the entire blame was placed on Serbia. When Serbia did not meet Austria-Hungary's impossible demands, they declared war against Serbia. Before declaring war, Austria-Hungary needed some backup. This was because if they attacked Serbia, there was a high probability that Russia would interfere. But when German Emperor Wilhelm II gave assurance of support, Austria-Hungary launched its attack on Serbia on July 28th. And that is exactly where Russia intervened. Russia's Tsar Nicholas II considered it his moral duty to save a Slavic state like Serbia. When Russia started partially mobilizing its troops, Germany declared war on Russia. Due to a treaty between Russia and France, Germany found itself at war with both countries simultaneously. A similar treaty also existed between France and Britain. When France first asked for Britain's help, Britain did not show much interest. But Germany dragged a superpower like Britain into the war. German General Schlieffen's plan was to attack France first. He believed that since Russia was so large, it would take them a long time to mobilize. In that time, Germany would occupy France with lightning speed and then face Russia with full force. This was the Schlieffen plan. As part of this plan, it became necessary to transport German troops through Belgium. Why? Because the entire French-German border was lined with numerous military installations. Entering France through that region would have wasted a significant amount of Germany's resources and time. So Germany demanded to transport its army through Belgium. When Belgium ignored the demand, Germany attacked Belgium on the night of August 3rd. This infuriated Britain, as Belgium was a neutral state. On August 4th, Britain declared war on Germany for violating the peace of a neutral state. Throughout August, various powerful countries in Europe and around the world declared war on each other. The timeline was as follows. July 28th, Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. July 31st, Germany issues ultimatums to Russia and France. August 1st, Germany declares war on Russia. August 2nd, German troops reach the borders of Luxembourg and Belgium. August 3rd, Germany invades neutral Belgium. August 4th, Britain declares war on Germany. August 5th, Hungary declares war on Russia. August 6th, Serbia declares war on Germany. August 7th, Montenegro, Serbia's neighbor, declares war on Hungary. August 12th, Montenegro declares war on Germany. August 10th and 12th, France and Britain declare war on Austria-Hungary. August 23rd, Japan declares war on Germany. August 25th, Austria-Hungary declares war on Japan. August 28th, Austria-Hungary declares war on Belgium. Overall, the global political situation became extremely murky. Before the war, there were two major powers in Europe, the Triple Entente and the Triple Alliance. But as the war began, the world divided into two factions. The Central Powers included Germany, Austria, Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, and Bulgaria. The Allied powers consisted of Russia, the British Empire, France, Italy, America, Japan, Romania, Serbia, Belgium, Greece, Portugal, and Montenegro. The British Empire's entry was terrible news for Germany, and the news regarding Russia was even worse. Defying all of Germany's pre-planned calculations, Russia mobilized for war very quickly. Germany sensed danger and requested Austria-Hungary to hold back the Russians. But Austria-Hungary failed completely. Consequently, Germany was forced to send a massive number of troops back to the Russian border. Thus, the war split into two fronts, the Eastern Front with Russia and the Western Front with France and Britain. By then, the Schlieffen Plan had failed. Surprisingly, in the Battle of Tannenberg, German forces stopped the Russians with incredible skill. Between August 23rd and 30th, they almost wiped out the Russian Second Army. The Russians were so unprepared that they hadn't even encrypted their radio communications. As a result, against 13,000 German soldiers, 30,000 Russian soldiers died, and 99,000 were captured. While holding off the Russians, the Germans continued to advance on the Western Front. By September 6th, they were within just 30 kilometers of Paris. If the Germans had actually occupied Paris, world history might have been very different. With their backs against the wall, the military governor of Paris, General Gallieni, managed with great difficulty to persuade the French commander-in-chief, Joseph Joffre, to order an attack. A terrible battle raged from September 6th to 12th, known as the First Battle of the Marne. In this single battle, nearly 250,000 French and 300,000 German soldiers were injured. 15,000 British, 80,000 French, and an almost equal number of German soldiers died. Finally, a joint French-British attack forced Germany to retreat. Subsequently, the war reached the sea, a phase known as the Race to the Sea. Then trench warfare began across a 350-mile region from the sea to Switzerland. While the war had been confined to Europe until then, it now began to spread across the globe. Joining the Allies, Australia occupied German New Guinea at the first opportunity. Japan did the same. German colonies in Africa came under attack. Meanwhile, on October 31st, 1914, the Ottoman Empire joined the war on the side of the Central Powers. As a result, on November 5th, France and Britain counter-declared war. Throughout November and December, fierce fighting continued between the Ottoman Empire and Russia in the Caucasus region. The British had an eye on the Ottoman oil fields from the start. So, on April 25, 1915, the Allied forces began the Gallipoli campaign. Their goal was to occupy the Ottoman capital, Constantinople. But after 9 months and nearly 200,000 casualties, the Allied forces retreated. An important incident occurred on May 7th. A German U-boat attack sank a ship named the Lusitania, carrying nearly 1,200 civilians, including 128 Americans. Consequently, American public opinion turned completely against Germany. On the 23rd of the same month, Italy joined the war. Although they were part of the Triple Alliance and were supposed to fight for the Central Powers, they betrayed them and joined the Allies, attacking the Austro-Hungarian Empire. However, it did not yield much benefit. By tempting Serbia's neighbor Bulgaria, the Central Powers brought them over to their side in October 1915. Eventually, Austria, Hungary, and Bulgaria together occupied Serbia. The year is 1916. The World War is at its peak. Meanwhile, Portugal seized a German ship anchored in Lisbon harbor. In response, Germany declared war on Portugal on March 16th. However, due to the naval blockade established at the start of the war, Germany's economic condition was pathetic. So on May 31st, 1916, not June, the German and British navies faced each other in full force for the first time. Nearly 250 ships participated in that naval conflict known as the Battle of Jutland. In just 2 days of fighting, 14 British ships were destroyed, along with 6,000 sailors. On the other hand, the German Navy stopped after losing 11 ships and 2,500 men. But the Empire's thirst for blood was not yet quenched. From February 21st to December 18, 1916, the longest battle of World War I took place in Verdun, France. During this time, 400,000 French and 350,000 German soldiers were injured. Between the two sides, about 300,000 people died. Meanwhile, the British continued their desperate efforts to subdue the Germans. July 1st, 1916, in the Battle of the Somme, 57,000 British soldiers were killed or wounded in just one day. Tanks were used for the first time in that same battle. While this bloody conflict raged on the Western Front, Russia was only retreating on the Eastern Front. Seeing the British attack at the Somme, the Russians also launched a counterattack, still known today as the Brusilov Offensive. But as their supplies ran out, they couldn't do much against Germany. Seeing the Russians advance, the Romanians also joined the war. But after the Russians stalled, the Romanians faced a brutal defeat. Meanwhile, internal conflict was brewing in Greece. The King of Greece wanted to join the Central Powers. But unable to overcome the Prime Minister, the king retreated and Greece joined the Allies. Although the Allies couldn't gain much ground in Europe, the Ottoman Empire's situation was deteriorating daily. Under Russian pressure, the Ottomans retreated continuously. In 1917, the Russian Revolution occurred. The Bolshevik Party came to power, and their first act was to sign a treaty with Germany and withdraw Russia from the war. This was great news for the Germans, but the United States of America was emerging as a new threat. Honestly, only America was benefiting from the entire war. By selling massive amounts of supplies to the Allies, their economy was booming. Here, Germany made a fatal mistake. To keep America occupied, they sent a secret telegram to the German ambassador in Mexico, known as the Zimmermann Telegram. Germany's goal was to have Mexico attack America. But the British decoded the telegram, and soon after, America joined the war. Germany was terrified by the arrival of new American troops. Germany launched a final, desperate, all-out offensive. The Allied forces retreated in 4 locations along the line of control, including the Somme. But at the 5th push, Britain and France held the Germans back. And then America arrived. The history after that is known to all. The Central Powers began losing on every front. First, Bulgaria admitted defeat. Then the Ottoman Empire. Then Austria-Hungary. Finally, on November 11, 1918, Germany surrendered. And with that, World War I came to an end.